Hi everybody. I'm talking about the second half of chapter 3, so about prenatal development. And if I have my cat here, he's in my lap. Um, so we'll do this with him. Okay, so gestation refers to the period between conception and birth. The typical gestation range is between 37 and 41 weeks. And you start dating it the first day of the mother's last menstrual cycle. So that's how it's calculated. And then there's sort of 3 stages that happen throughout the gestation period. And the first one is the germinal stage. So this is the first 2 weeks, and this is where the cells are dividing rapidly and excuse me, duplicating themselves. The zygote at this point travels from the fallopian tube and it enters the uterus, and then it tries to implant on the uterine wall. And so I think I wrote it down so I said the right statistic. Only 10 to 20% of the zygotes are actually implant. So most never make it to the implantation stage and continue to develop past that point. Okay, keep going. The second stage is the embryonic stage. So this is the second week is when it starts, and it goes to the 8th week. And it's characterized by rapid growth of the major body systems and organs. This is also the stage where having a spontaneous abortion or a miscarriage is the riskiest. So the other thing that's important to remember is how prevalent miscarriage is. So they believe that the statistics are at least 1 in 4 pregnancies. So the 1 in 4 is recognized pregnancies, which means that the person has recognized that they are pregnant. And they believe that if they counted everybody who had not recognized that they were pregnant yet, it might be a half, so 50%. So miscarriage is hugely common. It's just not something that many people talk about. For a long time, it's been stigmatized. And I feel like that's changing, at least in certain circles. People are trying to change that and be more open about their experiences, but historically. And then the third stage is the fetal stage. So this is the final stage, and it goes from that 8th week until the birth. And here there's more differentiation between the body parts. They're greatly lengthened, so they grow quite long. And then the bone density starts, the bone cells start in like week 26, I think. And let me move my thing over. So things that can affect women and the fetus during pregnancy, thinking about environmental things, are teratogens. Teratogens are factors that affect normal development. So they can be things like this list, like nutrition. So if a mother is not getting all the vitamins she needs or doesn't have access to proper nutrition, that's going to have effects on the fetus. Of course, drugs, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, all of those can be harmful in different ways, depending on 1, where you are in the pregnancy, and then of course 2, how much you're using. So remembering that 2 to 8 week time period is the most sort of vital for protection and making sure there's not any malformation or stress to cause a miscarriage or hinder the development when there's so much going on at that stage. Maternal illnesses. So one of the things, the book didn't talk about this, but there have been several studies that show that women who get the flu in the first trimester, I don't remember if it's the first or second trimester, have a much greater risk of their child developing schizophrenia later in life. So they know that they are positively correlated. They don't have any answers as to why or necessarily able to predict who it's going to affect yet, but they do know that more people who developed schizophrenia, their moms had the flu while they were pregnant, which is, I mean, there's just so much we don't know. So it's really important to take care of the mother's health, particularly, like I said, that 2 to 8 week range. Maternal age matters. So the older women get, the more difficult it is to reach full term in pregnancy. And I think I wrote down another note. Yeah, the chance of miscarriage or stillbirth is 90% at 45 years. So it's quite difficult the older that women get. There's also some men who might have trouble with their sperm as they get older. Not as much of an issue as it is with women, because obviously there's just not the same stress on a male body. But it does also matter what men are exposed to, if they're using drugs and alcohol, things like that. Outside environmental hazards. So I thought it was interesting that it talked about the x-rays, and even women going to get normal dental, I think it said routine dental x-rays are 3 times as likely to have low birth weight babies, even when they make it to full term. And then for men who have had diagnostic x-rays in the past year before conception, their babies also have lower birth rates. I just think that's fascinating. That's so interesting to know that things that you might not be thinking about could have effects on your kid. Oh, and I think the next slide is talks about men, the paternal factors. Yeah, so so same thing for marijuana and tobacco. Move this over so you can see. Hang on just a second. Kinsey, stop it. Marijuana, tobacco smoke, so same thing, drugs, the radiation, so that'd be the x-rays. They found exposure to pesticide or lead is not good for sperm. And then of course, advanced age is an issue as well. So this sort of last section here, disparities in prenatal care. In the US, prenatal care is widespread but lacks uniform national standards. So what that means is that there are lots of places you can go to get prenatal care, but it doesn't mean you're going to get the same care wherever you go. It does not mean that people have access to the same quality of care. And then of course, if you don't have health insurance, then that's like a whole nother layer of how do you handle that. There are definitely places where you can go to get free prenatal care, but it depends on your location and geography and things like that. So low birth weight and premature birth continue to rise. And they think that it's a factor of more multiple births. So if you're having twins or triplets or something like that, those babies tend to weigh less at birth than if you're just having one. And because we have more multiple births right now, that's why the low birth weight rates are higher. And then lastly, after adjusting for risk factors, and those risk factors be things like socioeconomic status, education level, things like that, the chances for prenatal death are still 3 times higher for Black women, 1.5 times higher for Hispanic women, and almost 2 times higher for any other minorities than whites. So yeah, just a major aspect of race that we have to consider. More people are beginning to look at that and study it. So one of the things that I just saw recently was that they found that OBGYNs spend more time with white clients than they do with their minority clients. So it's little things like that, like doctors are not spending the same amount of time. They have different expectations where they are maybe don't even realize that they have that bias, but it's still coming out in their care. So those are things that we can continue to talk about. And of course, if you have any questions, bring them to class and we can talk about stuff more in detail. I'm interested to know if you have any thoughts or any questions about any of this. And I will talk to you all soon.